4 days after ABC took Jimmy Kimmel off the air for covering up left-wing terrorism, the network has decided to reverse course and reinstate Kimmel after being targeted with more left-wing terrorism. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. I am still in Minneapolis. Last night, we had an amazing event. It was the first tour stop of the American Comeback Tour, Charlie Kirk's tour, since he was assassinated. One day after the memorial, TPUSA decided that the tour would go on. I thought that was certainly the right decision. Charlie and I had been scheduled to have a conversation together in Minneapolis. Instead, we had a tribute to Charlie to a completely packed auditorium, thousands and thousands of students shown up. And we will have the chairman of the TPUSA chapter at the University of Minnesota coming up to describe what student activism looks like moving forward in the face of all these threats. We'll get to that. First, though, I want to tell you about Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. Americans should be able to speak openly about honesty, family, traditional beliefs without retribution. That is a principle Pure Talk proudly supports. They sponsor this show, which allows me to stand strong behind the mic, really sit strong behind the microphone every single day and tell you the truth as I see it. Support the brands that defend the traditional American way of life. I encourage you to switch your wireless service to Pure Talk. You're going to get great 5G coverage on an extremely reliable and secure network. I have had my Pure Talk phone for years at this point. It's phenomenal. The price cannot possibly be beat. You're getting the best 5G network. You can even take it internationally if you go on vacation. For just $35 a month, you get a plan with a ton of data. You will also get a free 1-year membership to DailyWire Plus. That's how much Pure Talk believes in what we do at DailyWire. They also believe in creating American jobs, supporting small business. So if you are a business owner, you can save even more while you're enjoying that white glove service. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. That is puretalk.com/Knowles. Switch to a qualifying plan of $35 and you will get a free 1-year membership to DailyWire Plus. puretalk.com/Knowles for a wireless company that is not afraid to share your values. Kimmel's back. That after the left-wing freakout over free speech, where the American left was much more concerned about the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel than it was over the assassination of Charlie Kirk, simply for speaking his mind and having conversations. 4 days later, Jimmy Kimmel is back. Sort of. ABC, Disney, they have decided to reinstate Kimmel. According to Disney, quote, "We made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive." Absolute nonsense. We'll get to the reinstatement and the suspension and everything it means, but just this statement on its face is nonsense. The problem with what Jimmy Kimmel said is not that it was ill-timed and therefore insensitive. The problem with what Jimmy Kimmel said is that he told an egregious and malicious lie about left-wing terrorism that assassinated the most prominent, civil, generous, peaceful debater on the American right. Lest you forget what Jimmy Kimmel actually said. Here are the comments.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
That comment was not just insensitive. That comment was not just poorly timed. It was a lie. He said that the Charlie Kirk assassin was a MAGA Republican when there was zero evidence of that. When the assassin wrote Antifa far-left slogans on the bullets, when the assassin admitted in a text exchange with his trans furry boyfriend that he was motivated by a left-wing ideology to kill Charlie Kirk. It was an egregious lie on public airwaves that the federal government has a right and responsibility to regulate, but the ouster of Jimmy Kimmel came from the affiliates, from all the local affiliates that carry ABC after massive pushback from the audience because of a lie about a recent left-wing terror attack. A lie in furtherance of the left's broader campaign of political violence against the right. That's what it was. Don't tell me it was ill-timed. He could say that today. He could say that tomorrow. He could say that 10 years from now. It would be just as bad because it was a lie, not because of the timing. And according to reporting from Politico, he was planning to double down on that, which was reportedly the final straw. So ABC and Disney walk it back. Why? Why did they walk it back? Is the audience any less furious? Is the lie any more true? No. I'll tell you why they walked it back. In my humble read of the situation, here's some reporting. Man who fired a gun into ABC affiliate office had note to do the next scary thing, prosecutors say. After Jimmy Kimmel's ouster, a man showed up to an ABC affiliate in Sacramento and shot the place up. The man was rather clearly not a left-winger. The man was yelling all sorts of left-wing things, and according to reporting from NBC News, Jimmy Kimmel's suspension might have been a factor at Sacramento ABC affiliate. Quote, "We believe that there was a political motive behind his intention," the county prosecutor said. So Jimmy Kimmel was ousted by the audience and by the affiliates and ultimately by Disney and ABC because he lied about left-wing terrorism. He lied to cover up left-wing terrorism. And he was reinstated after more left-wing terrorism pressured ABC to do so. So once again, the left gets what it wants through political violence. This is a pattern we've seen a lot. Despite libs lying and saying that most of the political violence in America comes from the right, a claim that they can make by not counting the political violence on the left. We've given examples ad nauseum in recent days. We now see, yet again, the left gets what it wants through political violence. We saw it through the BLM movement, quite obviously. We've seen it through a lot of the LGBT movement, a lot of the trans violence, even just in recent weeks, and now we're seeing it here. Give us what we want, or we'll shoot you. We'll shoot you if you're a right-wing speaker having civil debates on college campuses. We will shoot you if you, or we'll at the very least pressure you, push back on you, attack you, assault you, crowd outside your house if you're a left-wing politician who's not sufficiently far to the left. And we'll shoot you if you're a liberal news station, a liberal TV station that in any way gets on our bad side. Left-wing terrorism has become a major, urgent public concern, and the government has to do something about it. It is a dominant factor in American politics right now. It threatens the very core of our country. The government has to do something about it, and happily the government will do something about it. Here is the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt explaining how President Trump will make good on his promise to declare Antifa a domestic terror organization.
But there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa. I will just read a few. In July 2025, several members of an Antifa cell ambushed and opened fire on officers at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, shooting one officer in the neck. Also in July 2025, 3 Antifa members were charged with assaulting a police officer during a violent riot outside an ICE facility in Portland, which for weeks prior had been under siege from the local Antifa terror cell. In February 2024, a transgender Antifa terrorist detonated an explosive device outside of the office of the Republican Attorney General of Alabama. In July 2023, Antifa members linked to abortionist group Jane's Revenge firebombed pro-life facilities and vandalized churches. In January 2022, a suspected Antifa member was arrested for bringing a pipe bomb to a pro-Trump event. In January 2021, an Antifa supporter threatened to shoot police officers and Trump supporters outside of the Florida State Capitol building. Again, I could continue to list many more examples.
The list goes on and on. Notice, Karoline Leavitt didn't even mention some of the more prominent examples that we've all been talking about in recent weeks. The University of Pittsburgh and so on. The list goes on and on. She would have been there all day if she listed every example. So the president is following up on his Truth Social post with an executive order. That means that they'll be able to mobilize prosecutors, at least at first, to go after these groups. And they're going to deal with Antifa in the same way that federal authorities have dealt with other domestic terror groups, with other organized crime groups. It has to happen. And it's very important for the White House to lay out this evidence at first, because I know what happens. You go into your school and your teacher says there's no such thing as left-wing terrorism in America. Most of the terrorism comes from the right. You can't point to any examples of left-wing terrorism. Oh, okay, maybe one here or there, but it's very, very rare. Well, listen to that list. That was a very partial list. You go to the water cooler and your coworkers are going to say there's no such thing. Antifa's not real. Antifa just means anti-fascist. What, are you a fascist or something? They don't understand what Antifa is. They don't understand that it's a coalition of anarchists and communists who are united by two things: a far-left ideology and the willingness to commit political violence. They just don't know. I mentioned earlier, I think it was last week, I said, I have a family member, very close to, who legitimately believed that the Charlie Kirk assassin was a MAGA Republican. He listens to all the mainstream news. I guess you would have to call him a low information voter, but he consumes plenty of news. It's not for lack of availing himself of the news websites, of the popular media. Places like NBC News, places like Jimmy Kimmel show. The problem is those guys are lying. They're lying, as you just heard, as we've just seen with our very eyes. So great that the White House is taking this seriously, laying out the case. Now we need to see some action, certainly from the prosecutors, but it'd be good to see some action from corporate America as well. As I mentioned shortly after Charlie was assassinated, we need to restore some health to the public square. We need to refortify it. We need to reassert order. We need to recognize that we all have to agree on certain axioms. In order to defend the public square, we actually have to exclude certain ideas and certain antisocial behaviors, the kinds of ideas and behaviors that undermine the public square, such as direct threats, such as political violence, such as, in Chesterton's word, the thought that stops thought. That's what we have to exclude. And unfortunately, the government is doing its part. ABC went squishy after 4 days. 4 days. This also totally debunks the left-wing narrative that the FCC was fascistically threatening ABC if they didn't cancel Jimmy Kimmel. Well, if that were the case, if ABC really feared some undue encroachment by the FCC, why did they reinstate Kimmel after 4 days? Total nonsense. Total nonsense. But something does have to be done. You can't go from our current situation of constant left-wing terrorism back to the free, robust marketplace of ideas immediately. There has to be an intermediary step, and the intermediary step is the reassertion of order. Nevertheless, the left is ratcheting up all of the rhetoric. Jasmine Crockett has a novel theory on patriotism in America. We'll get to her in one moment. First, I want to tell you about Equip Foods. Go to equipfoods.com/Michael Knowles. I hate protein bars. I hate them, actually. Someone asked the other day, they said, did anyone ever ask protein if it wanted to be in all those things? I don't know. They taste chalky. I don't like them, which is why I love Equip Foods Prime Bar. I love it. This is the first of its kind grass-fed beef protein bar with only real food ingredients. that will keep you energized, has nothing to hide, 20 grams of protein, okay? Starting today, our listeners will receive an exclusive discount on Prime Bar, which has become our team's favorite protein bar on the market with 20 grams of protein in every single bar. I highly recommend you try it, not just because you're going to feel better and you're going to feel better about yourself, but because they taste great. They have flavors like chocolate. They got mixed berry. If you want to try the cleanest protein bar on the market that has already sold out once, you need to go to equipfoods.com/Michael Knowles and use code Michael Knowles at checkout for 25% off one-time purchases or 40% off your first subscription order for a limited time. That's equipfoods.com/Michael Knowles, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. Use code Michael Knowles. I'll spell it again, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, K-N-O-W-L-E-S, at checkout. Jasmine Crockett, the new AOC, makes AOC look like James Madison. She has just come out with clever, but a little too clever by half messaging. I think Jasmine Crockett is a pretty shrewd politician. She pretends that she can't speak the English language, but she can, and I think she's a pretty shrewd politician. She realizes that the left's overt disdain for America, contempt for their own country, is not playing very well in Peoria. And so she's trying to flip the script with the claim that MAGA is the least patriotic group in the country.
You can wave all the flags you want to, but I am telling you right now that the most unpatriotic people that we have in this country are MAGA and this president. We are the real patriots, and it is time for us to take our flag back and show people what America is about. You can't say that you love the Constitution while decimating it with every single stroke of a pen for an executive order, while decimating it, while you are disrespecting our troops that have signed up to protect our freedoms, not just here, but abroad. And then you're taking people's freedoms away using those exact same troops.
Come again. I might have to retract a statement. I said that she had a command of the English language. Well, look, it's better. That was clearer than she usually sounds when she's on stage playing to the Democrat audience. I think I can get the point she's trying to make. She's trying to say MAGA, the right, the conservatives, hate America, and Democrats are the true patriots. But she gives away the game. Did you catch how she gives away the game? How she admits that her premise is faulty? She says we need to take our flag back. We, Democrats, need to take the American flag back and wave it. What happened to the flag in the first place? Why do you have to take it back? Because you surrendered the flag. Because you don't wave the American flag right now. Because you don't like your country. Go to a left-wing rally. How many American flags are you going to see? You're going to see a lot of flags. You're going to see the rainbow flag, the flag. You're going to see the rainbow with the triangle and the BLM symbols. I call it that's the terrorist flag. You're going to see the Palestinian flag. You're going to see a lot of flags. You're going to see Mexican flags. But you know, one flag you're probably not going to see, you're certainly not going to see very often, is the American flag. Why is that? Jasmine Crockett, it's just a coincidence. I don't know. I don't know why. For some reason, we put that American flag down. We should probably pick it back up again, right? We should probably wave it. She gives away the game. It's smart to try to pivot if you're a Democrat, because right now, most Americans have the impression that Democrats don't like their country, because they don't. It's smart to try to pivot. She's on Gavin Newsom's show. Gavin Newsom is trying to make this pivot. He was trying to befriend Charlie Kirk before Charlie's murder. He is trying to befriend Steve Bannon. He's trying to seem like a centrist and a moderate and the new Bill Clinton or something. The problem is it's not going to work because it's not true. Democrats, broadly speaking, don't like their country very much. We saw this explicitly when Trump ran the first time, and he ran with the slogan, "Make America Great Again," which was an old political slogan. Ronald Reagan used it. He said, we're going to make America great again. And how did prominent Democrats react to that? How did Andy Cuomo, then governor of New York, a potential Democrat presidential candidate, how did he respond to it? He said, America was never that great. And that is obviously the mainstream Democratic view. That's the view of of left-wing educators. That's the view of left-wing outlets. You think of the 1619 Project, says America was founded to defend slavery or something. That's the view of mainstream Democrat politicians. It's certainly the view of the rank and file. They say America wasn't that great. It really isn't that great. Everyone's oppressed. It's awful. We're an imperial terror. We're the greatest cause of instability in the world. Blah, blah, blah. You've all heard it before. So what are they going to do? It's fitting that Jasmine Crockett was on Gavin Newsom's show here because Newsom's caught between a rock and a hard place. He needs to be a bleeding heart leftist. He needs to be on the avant-garde of the left. I mean, remember when he was mayor of San Francisco, he illegally performed so-called marriages. This guy is a bona fide leftist, but he realizes he's got to play to the center to have any shot of a Democrat winning the general election. So he plays up that he's a handsome white man who, I don't know, wears nice suits, goes to the French Laundry. He's trying to play up his bougie centrist cred, and it doesn't work. There's no path right now in the Democrat Party for that. There's no path for patriotism right now. And the more honest liberals are admitting it. There was a really telling tweet from Thomas Chatterton Williams. Do you know Thomas Chatterton Williams? Probably not. He's a staff writer for The Atlantic. He's a bougie liberal writer par excellence. He goes to all the fancy bougie left-wing things. And Thomas Chatterton Williams wrote this: I've spent half of my adult life living in one foreign country or another, and I don't think I've ever felt so estranged from the surrounding culture as I am from the aesthetics and sensibilities of this movement. He's specifically posting pictures of Charlie Kirk's memorial service. Not even a criticism, I just feel more at home in Greece than in these images. And what are the images? It's people praying, it's people coming together, it's people forgiving their enemies, it's people waving the American flag, singing the Star-Spangled Banner, praise and worship music, proclaiming the gospel. And he says, I just feel so alienated from it. It's just so weird. I just feel so much more at home sipping my Greek coffee in Santorini. This is just so icky in America. I just don't understand it at all. There's a term for this. It's a term popularized by Roger Scruton. Or I suppose this is the opposite of the term popularized by Scruton, which is oikophobia. Oikophobia. Roger Scruton, the late conservative philosopher, he promoted this term oikophilia, which is love of one's home. He said conservatives were oikophiles. We have to love our home. We have to want to be in a good and beautiful place and have an attachment to our country. Well, the opposite of that is oikophobia. Fear, disdain, hatred of one's home. Oikophobia and liberalism go hand in hand. I often observe that liberalism basically boils down to screw you, Dad. It's 3 words. Well, related to that is a contempt for home, a desire to leave home as quickly as possible, move out, go to a college as far away as you can, go get that apartment on your own, live alone, away from home. It permeates the entire culture. I'm not really even merely pointing to one political party or the other, but it's a product of liberalism. Liberalism, which is constantly seeking abstraction, constantly seeking to maximize individual autonomy. Liberalism, which feels a kind of shame for tradition, for inherited circumstances, a shame for the duties and the relationships that we just come by naturally, that are not chosen. That's what he's expressing. It's the same thing. You know the person, you might have been the person who says, I was born in the wrong era. I was born in the wrong place. I should have been born in the 1920s or the 1940s. Or on the 1960s, say. I really should have been born in Italy. I should have been born. No, I certainly don't belong here. People say this all the time. When they say this, what they are confessing is not their own sophistication. What they're confessing is a character defect. What they're confessing is an insecurity. What they're confessing is a lack of self-knowledge. Because you are born in the right time and you are born in the right place. Because we are, to a large degree, products of our circumstances. We find our identity, in fact, in our circumstances, in our families, in our homes, in our nations. That's not all that our identity is, but it's a lot of it. This is why Socrates preferred to drink the hemlock rather than be exiled from Athens. Because to lose one's place within the community is to suffer a kind of a death. And liberalism, being an ideology ultimately that inclines toward death, prefers that. Hates a fixed place, hates limits, hates the limits that are imposed by a country or a home, four walls of a house. That's what he's expressing. That is intrinsic to liberalism. And the further along liberalism advances into these modern forms of leftism, the worse it gets. Jasmine Crockett wants the Democrats to reappropriate the American flag. Good luck. Good luck convincing your own followers to do it. Now, I want to get back to Jasmine Crockett because she said one of the most mind-numbingly obtuse things I think I've ever heard. We'll get to that in one moment. First, though, speaking of home, I want to tell you about Leaf Filter. Go to leaffilter.com/Knowles. Fall is a great time of year. You know I love that autumnal season with the trees changing and the bold colors all around and the pumpkin spice lattes galore. Autumn leaves look nice until they end up clogging your gutters, causing headaches and potential damage. With Leaf Filter, America's top gutter protection company, you can enjoy the season without worrying about cleaning them out ever again. Right now, you can schedule a free inspection and estimate, plus save up to 30% on your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Knowles, KNWLES. You could keep messing around with those cheap DIY fixes from the hardware store, but how many times do you want to climb that ladder and scoop out the gunk with your bare hands? You know how many times I want to do it? 0. That's how many. Leaf Filter is the permanent solution, built with patented technology that only lets water through. No gaps, no holes, no excuses. Every installation comes with a lifetime no clogs guarantee. So once it's on, you're done. And here's the kicker. A Leaf Filter Pro does not just slap it on and leave. They will actually clean, realign, and seal your gutters first so everything works the way that it's supposed to. Over 1 million homeowners already trust it, probably because they're tired of wasting Saturdays cleaning out gutters. Do not spend the season worrying about your gutters. Schedule your free inspection. Get up to 30% off your entire purchase at leaffilter.com/Knowles. That is LEAF filter.com/Knowles, KNWLES. Free estimate, free inspection, 30% off. LEAF filter.com/Knowles. See a representative for warranty details. Well, I don't want to move on from Jasmine Crockett too fast. She provides too much good content. Here, Jasmine Crockett explains her visceral reaction when she sees federal immigration enforcement.
But as somebody who understands history, when I see ICE, I see slave patrols. Now, I never lived through the slave patrol period, but if you know the history of policing in this country, then you understand that they were born out of slave patrols.
ICE is like slave patrols. First of all, I just want to get to her preface. She said, as someone who understands history, and I think I'm going to start prefacing my comments with, as a big fat Vietnamese woman, I believe such and such. That would be more plausible than Jasmine Crockett starting her sentences with, as someone who knows history, as someone who's... Jasmine Crockett says that ICE is like slave patrols. Do you see the problem there? Do you see maybe the one reason that comparison is inapt? Slave patrols stopped people from escaping. ICE stops people from invading. They do exactly the opposite thing. It's not just that the similarity is not quite perfect. The comparison is it's that they do literally the opposite thing. But other than that, great comparison. This is like when people would compare the border wall, the southern border wall, to the Berlin Wall or something like that. It's, the Soviet Union built a big wall too. Yeah, the Soviet Union, the evil empire, built the wall to stop people from leaving. we built the wall to stop people from coming in. I think that tells you that there's a difference between the two countries, wouldn't you say? I think that tells you there's a bit of a difference between ICE and slave patrols. Goodness gracious. Speaking of federal law enforcement and confounding Democrat women, Mazie Hirono, who is a Democrat member of the U.S. Senate, just accidentally hoisted herself on her own petard trying to grill FBI Director Kash Patel. See if you catch the flaw in her logic.
Move on to my, you've been asked some questions about changes to your hiring standard, and including college degrees and possibly the age. But, one question I had is that you are now requiring applicants to be able to do a certain kind of pull-ups, which a lot of women cannot because of physiological differences. Are you requiring these kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring a physical program at BFTC at Quantico because FBI agents carrying guns in the field have to chase down bad guys and do really hard work. The physical fitness standards of those agents
are you requiring these kinds of pull-ups?
We are requiring everybody to pass the 1811 standards at BFTC. If you want to chase down a bad guy and put him in handcuffs, you better be able to do a pull-up.
The reason I ask is that there are concerns about whether or not being able to do these kinds of harsh pull-ups is really required of FBI agents.
Doing one pull-up is not harsh, and there are always medical exemptions to that.
Okay, so premise. Women should be FBI agents because women are just the same as men. And they can do everything that men can do, and there's no difference between men and women. So if you don't hire women for this job, you are unjustly discriminating against them based on their sex, which is irrelevant to their ability to do the job. That's step one. Step two. Hold on. Are you requiring women to live up to the same standards as the men who do the job? You can't do that. Men and women are totally different. Men and women can't do the same things. Women cannot do the same things that men can do. That's crazy. Where'd you ever get that idea? Well, Mazie, I don't know if you remember 5 seconds ago when you were telling, no, forget about that. How dare you suggest that women can do the same thing as men? They obviously can't, which is why they need to be hired to do the exact same jobs as men, because there's no difference between men and women. I rest my case. Now, even Mazie Hirono, who is absolutely impervious, immune to all logic, even Mazie Hirono realized that there might be a problem with what she was saying. So right there at the end, she tried to save herself. She says, because I don't know, there is a real question as to whether or not FBI agents need to be able to do a single pull-up. Is there? Who has that question? I'm not an expert. I've never worked in law enforcement. I'm not much of an athlete even. Seems to me federal law enforcement officers should probably be able to do a single pull-up. And in fact, here's my evidence for that. There are physical standards in the first place. There is a physical test that the agents have to take. That's the thing you're taking issue with. So then my rejoinder to Mazie Hirono is, okay, you're trying to save yourself there at the end. Why does the test exist in the first place? She would not have an answer to that. And after a while, what would probably come out is what has happened in all of these places that the left has infected, all of these institutions, which is they would probably just lower the standards. They'd probably just get rid of the test or severely reduce the test in the first place. That's what they would have to do, which leads you to a society of Harrison Bergeron. So Harrison Bergeron, great story by Kurt Vonnegut of this dystopia that increasingly we appear to be living in, which rather than trying to build people up, rather than observing people's natural talents, the natural diversity among people, trying to play to people's different strengths, they just try to handicap all the people who excel at anything. And so you have a society that intentionally cripples everyone. And in this case, you would have federal law enforcement made up of people who cannot possibly enforce the law, who like physically cannot enforce the law. People who can't do a single pull-up. Is that the kind of society you want to live in? Do you think that's going to play well in the midterm elections, in the next presidential election, when crime and disorder and law enforcement are top issues for people? And you got the left saying, we need to reduce all standards for law enforcement? I don't think so. But I don't see how they get out of that problem if they maintain their radical, individualist, liberal, egalitarian ideology, all the things we've been talking about all day. If they are to maintain that, they cannot then pivot and say, no, you're right, actually, we should have standards for law enforcement. It doesn't work. They have to pick one. If they're going to maintain their oikophobic ideology, which has them waving every flag other than the American flag, then they cannot immediately turn around and say, we're actually the party of patriots. MAGA hates America. It doesn't work. You have to pick one. And right now, the left is clearly a prisoner to its own ideology. Speaking of subpar female federal employees, Kamala Harris just went on MSNBC. She's promoting her book that not a soul is going to read. I'm not sure Kamala Harris has read her book. And she goes on MSNBC to promote the book. This is as friendly an interview as there could possibly be. And she blows it. She can't even do a friendly interview. She is asked about her own claim that she couldn't pick Pete Buttigieg to be her running mate because he's gay. She was just asked to defend her own claim that she volunteers in her book. Here's her response.
You're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay is hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, But
I didn't pick him because he's a light in the loafers, tap dancing homosexual. She goes on. She goes on to sell a book that she ostensibly wrote. I assume she did not actually write it, but in principle, the idea is that she wrote it. And she goes on the friendly news network, the friendliest news network. And they say, hey, can you just explain a sentence you wrote? She goes, hold on, I didn't say that. He goes, hey, you said you didn't pick Pete Buttigieg to be a running mate because he's gay. I didn't say that. What I said was I didn't pick him because he is a gay man. And people are saying I didn't pick him because he's gay. I didn't pick him, okay, you understand, because he is a homosexual. I didn't say that. I didn't say what I said. Why do you think I said what I said? Did a coconut just fall on me out of a tree? Crack me on the head? Oh man, this woman, they picked her. They booted out Joe Biden, who was senile, possibly dead. I get there were problems with, but they booted out Joe Biden, who was actually a successful politician for half a century, who got himself elected to the U.S. Senate before it was even legal, even before it was even constitutional. Okay, a very talented politician. They booted him out, and then they had their pick of the Democrat Party, and they picked this woman who can't read her own book. She can't read her own book. And why did they do it? I don't want to beat up on them too much. I don't want to say that, oh, they made a mistake and they should have picked someone else. Maybe they would have done better with Biden. He probably would have lost too. They picked her because they're prisoners to their own ideology. Joe Biden admitted it. He said, I have to pick a black woman to be my running mate. And there were 3 prominent choices. Susan Rice, who was the fall man for Benghazi, she was out. Karen Bass, a literal communist. And Kamala Harris, who was the first person to drop out of the presidential primary when she ran. But she had a pulse, and she had a suntan, a year-long suntan, and she had lady parts. So therefore they picked her. Okay, before we get to the very excellent, very courageous student chairman of the TPUSA chapter at University of Minnesota, I do have to make one more point on lady parts, I guess, actually, speaking of sexual controversies. It is being reported that the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron, is going to present photographic evidence to court that she is a woman because of her ongoing defamation lawsuit against Candace Owens. You know, I have not really weighed into this controversy very much. I generally try not to get involved in these affairs when they involve friends of mine and associates of mine and colleagues of mine. I try to have a lighter touch, but I have to weigh in here. Brigitte Macron is potentially moments away from releasing photographic evidence of her sex. I am imploring everyone involved with this lawsuit to please drop it before I have to look at those photographs. I will chip in. I don't know. I'll chip in to whichever side. Whatever has to happen to make this lawsuit stop before we see. It's no knock on Brigitte Macron. She's a lovely woman. You know, she's a woman of a certain age, and it's just even that. I think certain things are best left to the imagination. I think clothing is good on statesmen and their spouses, and please don't release the photos. Please. That's all I'm saying. I just want some decorum in public life. Is that so much to ask? These days it is so much to ask. Okay, I am very pleased to be joined momentarily by the TPUSA chairman from University of Minnesota, who I spent last night with. Our very own Mary Margaret Olahan takes you where no journalist has ever gone before, inside the most classified Air Force base in America, home to 19 B-2 stealth bombers. On June 21st, 7 of those bombers launched Operation Midnight Hammer, dropping over 420,000 pounds of bunker-busting bombs to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. 37 hours later, the mission was accomplished. Only the DailyWire got exclusive access to the pilots, the base, and the cockpits. The result is our brand new short documentary, How to Win a War in 37 Hours, streaming free right now at dailywire.com. Take a look.
Targeted broad, 250, 20 miles, 5,000 low.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime.
Very claustrophobic.
7 B-2 stealth bombers took off loaded with 420,000 pounds of advanced bunker-busting bombs and a mission. But how did they pull this off?
Watch How to Win a War in 37 Hours with Mary Margaret Olahan, streaming free at dailywire.com. My favorite comment yesterday is from Aaron Johnston, 1584, who says, the irony is that Trump doesn't hate anyone, including his enemies. It's funny because after that amazing, stirring speech, one of the best speeches I've ever heard from Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, in which she forgave her husband's murderer, Trump gets up there and he says, you know, it's so beautiful what Erica said. I know Charlie would always say, love your enemies and all. He goes, but this is where I disagree with Charlie. I hate my enemies. I hate them. I don't want what's best for them. You know, and I know Erica needs to talk to me, and Charlie, he's looking down, he's angry at me. And it was, I think, a bit of a joke. I think it was a bit self-deprecating, as Trump has done many times before. But he was pilloried for this, including in parts of the right. And I think that comment is actually more to the point. The irony of it all is, I don't think Trump really hates his enemies. He forgives people on a dime. He doesn't really take things all that personally. He has political rivalries. He beats people up in public, and they beat him up, and he's a tough guy. But I don't really see him staying up all night, red in the face, steam coming out of his ears. He was palling around with Elon Musk at Charlie's memorial, and they had a pretty rough falling out. This is the irony. Trump, part of Trump's charm is he admits his faults. We all are human. We all have faults. And in some ways, he plays up his faults. He makes himself out to be worse than he actually is. Okay. Speaking of Charlie, last night was the first stop on Charlie's speaking tour, the American Comeback Tour, since he was assassinated. And there was, of course, a question as to whether or not that tour would continue or could continue. When I was filling in one day last week on Charlie's show, TPUSA asked me, they said, when is your tour date? And I said, well, Charlie and I were supposed to speak in Minneapolis on Monday. And they asked me, are you going to do it? I said, well, it's your decision. You tell me. And they said, we want to do it. If you're willing to do it, we want to do it. And I agreed. I said, I think we should. I think that you can't back down. You can't let the left win. You can't let them silence us. And so we had the first stop of it last night. It was a tremendous event. There will be other friends of Charlie's who are going to fill in for the rest of the tour, and it's going to go on all around the country. I am joined right now by Elizabeth Kleckner, who is the chairman of the TPUSA chapter at the University of Minnesota and who organized the event last night. Elizabeth, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Knowles. It's a pleasure to be here.
Elizabeth, I think we should tell the audience, not only did I see you yesterday evening, but I saw you this morning. You and I were supposed to go on Fox and Friends this morning. They requested that we come on to talk about the event last night. And I'm sitting there, and I have an empty chair next to me. And I said, I don't know, maybe Elizabeth slept in or something like that. Maybe, I don't know, college kids, she was up late partying or something. No. I ended up doing the news hit myself. But the affiliate, the Fox affiliate, had accidentally sent you to the wrong green room. I said, well, frankly, it's more important that she comes on and gives her perspective than just me. I was on the show the day before anyway. So I said, it's very important that people hear from you. I'm glad you could make it onto my show. Just give us a little insight into how students are feeling after the assassination of Charlie, after the subsequent celebration of Charlie's assassination, after all of the threats that we've seen on campus that have really, really ramped up to now a deadly degree. How are the students feeling?
Right. So September 10th, me and my peers were, very upset, as all of you were. We went to several vigils. I've been to 3 myself since the assassination, and our club has gone to several together. But after that, we all kind of convened and were talking, and we wanted you to still come and speak because this was the plan. He was supposed to be here. I met him over the summer. He said he wanted to be here. So we wanted to do an event no matter what, and that was sort of the mentality that everyone had. So last night was exhilarating to say the least. It was very successful. We had a line out the door down the block. It sounded like, I didn't see it myself, but I was very impressed by the turnout. When I was able to address everyone, I actually couldn't see all the way up the top of the auditorium, which was amazing. And we just appreciate having a conservative voice on campus since there hasn't been one in several years. And it was an honor to host the first tour stop since his passing.
It was a great pleasure to be able to come out and do it. Your point on how many people showed up, the auditorium, I think, held about 2,700, not a seat open in the house. And then I heard there were another 1,000 or 1,300 outside. I think it was a total of about 4,000 people tried to make it out, which in some ways did not surprise me because it was a very important moment for not just the American right, not just campus conservatives, but for the whole country. But on the other hand, I was somewhat surprised because there was the real credible threat of violence. And I wondered if students were going to turn out. I did an interview with a liberal news outlet yesterday, and they raised this. They said, well, is anyone going to show up? Aren't they going to be afraid that someone is going to shoot them? I mean, that really was the point of the political violence against Charlie, which was the peak of all of the other political violence that we've seen from the left against conservatives, especially on campus in recent years. So are the students afraid? Or are you afraid? Is there any trepidation or no?
Absolutely not. Of course, we had a few students ask about security, and the university and all the security was great, all the law enforcement officers that were there. But when I kind of want to reference Erica's speech about a week ago, when conservatives get, pushed down, we come back stronger, more confident. And when you know you're in the right, it's easy to sort of be set and stubborn and we're going to do this. And nothing was going to stop us. You could actually hear the protesters outside being drowned out by USA chants. I thought that was amazing. So it was just everyone was in the right mindset last night.
It was beautiful. I think you showed tremendous courage and clarity of vision. You did a great job pulling off the event. I think, I mentioned in the speech last night, I don't like it when people are trying to speak for Charlie now as, he would have said this about this issue, or he would have said that on some controversial issue that he maybe hadn't weighed in on. And I think people should really avoid doing that. On something like this, however, on the courage of conservative students on campus not to be deterred, not to be cowed, I think we can all say with 100% certainty he would have absolutely loved it. He would have been very, very proud of it. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Keep up the great work. Keep up the courage out there. All of the students who will not back down. Wonderful to see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Have a good day.
Now, for all of you, I am going to see you in the member block. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLAS, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.